just there's so much that as a society we don't know. Like, who knew that, you know, you can use herbal medicine for such a vast array of conditions and symptoms, women having such a tough time with it. Honestly, it's really, really bad and scary to see. Obviously, I hear a lot of the worst case scenarios. I don't hear the people who have a super smooth ride and are dealing with it well. But think about stuff like hot flashes starting, periods obviously becoming irregular and heavier, people getting vaginal dryness, people having a big change in their libido, migraines, headaches, getting like dizziness out of nowhere, itchy skin. Honestly, it's such an array of symptoms. And if people aren't educated on even what perimenopause is, I don't think I really knew about it or knew what the hell it was until I got into this industry.
Hey, I'm Zeb.
And I'm Maddie.
And welcome to the We Don't Know Yet podcast. Whilst both Maddie and I are healthcare practitioners, we understand that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to healthcare. Should you require any medical attention, please seek out your local healthcare practitioner. Oh gosh, well, Lauren, welcome. Our first guest from Thailand.
So honoured. From the, Asia Pacific.
Yeah, we're going to roll with it.
Yep.
Well, welcome. First naturopath as well.
Yay!
Everyone, we're joined by Lauren Jane, who is a naturopath with a background in, you're going to have to correct me on this one as well.
Behavioural science.
Behavioural science and health science.
Yes.
Nice.
Tick, tick.
And has a background in some psychology work as well at the university level. And you're a naturopath.
I am a naturopath.
Amazing.
And
I guess today we'll
nutritionist.
obviously be diving more into the link between hormones and gut health, which is, as you were saying off air, something that you talk a lot about and do a lot of work in that space. So I'm really interested to dive into it. I feel bad for Zeb. Like, I feel like a lot of our recent podcast topics have been very skewed towards females. So, but you're learning.
I'm learning a lot. We just spoke with a cyclic mentor and spoke all things periods and the female hormonal cycle. So yeah, I'm going deep. It was funny last podcast we spoke about the relationship between cycles and men, and I said my partner sometimes pulls me up and says that I'm on my man period, and
it's a thing.
It's definitely a thing. We learnt it's definitely a thing.
I can attest to that. Sorry, Jack.
And you learn so much, right? Like, you're going to learn so much that you can bring back to your female clients and interact better with your partner. So
exactly.
It's a good thing.
It's absolutely a good thing. And I've learned so much. And like you said as well, like, this is so transferable into industry, you know. It's not just everything surface level that you need to look for with patients. It's really diving deep and trying to find out what the true root cause is of some of their symptoms and things that are actually going on in their body. So yeah, it's been fantastic. But tell us a little bit about yourself. We might hand over to you to give us a little bit of an intro into how you actually ended up in Thailand and what work as a naturopath actually looks like from your perspective.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for having me, guys. I'm a naturopath. So I've done a Bachelor of Health Science, as you guys explained. And essentially that makes me a nutritionist and a herbalist. And for me personally, because of my long history of gut issues, that kind of led me down the path of getting into gut health and digestion and, things like irritable bowel syndrome, mold exposure, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, food intolerances, all of that jam. So that's been a really fun journey, helping a lot of women in that area. And then that obviously links into women having hormonal issues. And I'm sure we're going to delve into what that link is. But I'm living in Thailand. I've been here for the last 10 years, but I do go back and forth and try and see some of my clients there sometimes. Otherwise, I'm working predominantly online. Yeah. And I ended up here many, many moons ago because I traveled in my 20s and was like, oh, I love this place. I want to live here at some point in my life. And then a friend from uni got a job at a health resort over there called Kamalaya. And she was like, we're hiring, you need to come. So I was like, oh, I'll just do, an interview for shits and giggles, and did it, got through, did a whole bunch of extra interviews, and then ended up getting the job. And I was like, oh, I got to go. So that was back then. And I stayed in that job, I think, for about 2 or 3 years. And then I tried to come back to Melbourne and I just couldn't do it. So came
Thailand
back
and Melbourne, there's a big distinction there.
Big difference.
Vast, yeah. So So yeah,
and
here I am.
you know what? I actually think this is the first time I've had a fellow Melburnian on.
Yes.
Just to make a slight reference, but how exciting is that? So
is.
it was just out in a limb. You just moved the life over to Thailand.
Yes. Yeah. The
How
intention
was
was to
it?
be there for a year, or be here for a year,
Yeah.
but that obviously didn't happen.
Yeah, because now we're saying how long have you been over there for now? Sorry,
10 years.
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Oof.
Pretty cool to, I guess, in this day and age, be able to, earn an income online and be able to live wherever you want in the world as well. It's something that a lot of people aspire to do, but I don't think many people actually go through this whole process of actually doing it. So yeah, props to you. That's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, I think it's a big thing now, the whole digital nomad thing. But I feel like back when I first came, I was like, yes, high five to me. I'm so glad I've managed to make this happen. But obviously since COVID, so many people are doing it, and we're really lucky.
It's really, really cool. And so you were saying your history or experiences with gut health more got you into the whole world of naturopathy. What kind of, I guess, led you down naturopathy rather than, say nutrition, like clinical nutrition or dietetics sort of thing?
After I did my psych degree, my undergrad, I took a year off, and my sister, who is actually a pharmacist, strangely enough, was like, Lauren, I think you would really love a naturopathy degree. And I was like, oh, I don't know. She was like, do one subject, So I did food as medicine, actually, speaking about nutrition. And I was like, oh, I love this. And I just enrolled the next year. And so there wasn't really a lot of forethought, but then, yeah, as I got into the degree, learning more about herbal medicine, just there's so much that as a society we don't know. Like, who knew that, you can use herbal medicine for such a vast, array of conditions and symptoms, and that like one herb can have, multiple actions. It might have a laxative effect, but it might also have an anxiolytic, like help with anxiety, nervous system support. Just feel like Mother Nature is pretty damn incredible. So yeah, once I started that degree, I was like, yes, I am finishing this. This is where I need to be.
Yeah, that's amazing. And like Zeb and I obviously both come from very clinical education backgrounds, but like as a dietitian myself, I feel like there's such a place for natural medicine and like natural herbs and supplements. It's just, as you said, a whole nother world. There's so much that there is to know, and the more that you know, the more you realize what you don't know.
I feel like I get
Absolutely.
really blown away by the fact that, we talk about food being such a pillar of health, but still to this day, people will pick stuff up from the grocery aisle and not really know what's in it, what half the foods or contents of their food actually mean, or what they actually do for their body. They just kind of pick it up, put it in the basket, and that's it. And it's a really mind-blowing scenario when we think about the fact that food is such a pivotal part of our health and our life that, we don't really take the time to sit down and unpack a little bit about it. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and there's also so many layers, it's like, even if you develop, your knowledge about like, yes, this is nutritionally good for me, it's also like, is it actually good for me as an individual? Kale might be great, but how does that sit for you in your body? And then there's like, yeah, the vitamins and minerals, but then I'm also like, there's the energetics of food, having something that's really cold versus like ginger that's nice and warming. So that's going to feel better, say, if you have your period and having period pain. So there's just so many different layers when it comes to food, I think.
Yeah, it's really nuanced. And obviously at the start of today, we mentioned that we are going to touch on like the link between your gut health and I guess what's happening for you hormonally. What got you interested in that area, more specifically, like the hormonal side of things?
I kind of fell into it. It was part of the job that I ended up getting into. Someone found me actually when I was living in Thailand and was like, come work for us. So I've been working with women and hormonal issues, I think, for the past 8 years. So honestly, I live and breathe periods, menopause, perimenopause, vaginal health, the whole kit and caboodle. I was laughing before when you were talking about Zeb being here and having to be exposed to all this. My husband, the stuff that he sees every single day, he's an expert in this stuff as much as I am.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of just fell into it, and they are in a lot of ways directly linked. So
yeah, and with all the new research that's coming out now about the gut and how much it actually influences our whole body, it's a pretty cool space to be in. If I was kind of general pop, someone coming into your doors and going, right, like how does food, or what are the basics that I need to know about food and my gut microbiome and how that actually influences my hormones, how would we even start to like crack that conversation open?
That is such a loaded question.
It is a massive question, but I'm gonna hit you right there from the start, because I feel like it's, you know, like we do use like the words hormones a lot in today's day and age.
Very trendy.
It is very trendy, but we've had a few people on to really unpack it, because there is so many processes in the body that, you know, we have to undergo for us in order to live. But, you know, with all the research that's coming out now about how much the food actually impacts us, I feel like it's just such a minefield. There's like so much research out there, and it's hard to know what actually kind of what sticks. So how do you go about it with your patients anyway? And like how do you sit down with them and have this conversation if they're really just like overwhelmed by the amount of information that's out there?
Okay, so yeah, it is. It's a complex beast.
Yeah.
So let's talk first just about obviously gut health and, like you said, foods and how to have a healthy gut, I guess, because then there's the next element of why it's related to hormones. And it's a really tough one because obviously there's so many different health conditions out there. You know, people talk about SIBO and histamine intolerance and food intolerances and H. pylori infection and all this stuff, and everyone's unique, right? And I feel like that's why people are so confused, because they're like, but I can eat this, but that's high FODMAPs, but that's high histamine, so I can't have that. You know, it's really confusing for people. So I just really like to bring it back down to basics. Like, there is no point getting people on 1,000 supplements and putting them on these really complex diets if they don't have the foundations in place, you know? So
Love that.
I'm all about, like, are you sleeping right? You know, are you eating food that grew on planet Earth? You know, do you have some stress management practices in place? Are you moving? You know, you're practicing mindfulness. Just so many of us don't actually have those things, you know, down pat in our life.
Yeah.
And all of them impact gut health.
Yeah.
I mean, they impact every area of health. But I try and simplify stuff with people. So, you know, usually when stuff is going wrong with the gut, it's because there's inflammation in the gut. And then when there's inflammation, you end up getting leaky gut. So to explain it, it's kind of like having like little holes in your gut lining where either bacteria can get through or poorly digested food particles can get through, goes into the bloodstream, and your body's like, what the hell is this? Why is this in my bloodstream? You end up building an immune response against it. You start developing food intolerances. So bringing it back, you know, you want to reduce inflammation in the gut lining. You want to heal that gut lining. You want these nice little tight, we call them gap junctions. And then you want that, you know, big community of bugs that are living in your gut to be diverse and happy and healthy. And when it's not, we call it dysbiosis. So I kind of feel like with every gut issue, it all comes back down to that. That is what is happening in every condition. You got inflammation, you got bad bacteria. And so I try and just encourage people to do the things that are going to help their microbiome and help have a healthy mucosal lining.
And I actually listened to a clip you did with a previous podcast talking about, you know, people falling into that, and you didn't say it this way, but what I took from it was people kind of then fall into this negative feedback loop where they just continuously eat the same foods because they're the foods that they don't really like kind of want to steer too clear from. And then that diversity, it kind of gets a little bit lost on them. Whereas like, you know, like you're saying, it's about really trying to make sure that they're starting to branch out and see different foods. Expand their kind of regular food consumption.
Yeah, that's exactly what I say. I'm like, if you're eating the same foods all the time, you're feeding the same bugs. So your gut health isn't really going to change all that much. So I like to do little things like keep it fun, getting people to try and eat, you know, 10 different colors a day. So, you know, it sounds kind of difficult, but not really. You know, you can think I had some blueberries, you know, all colors work, you know, some flaxseed, something brown, you know, some greens, you know, something purple. I had a bit of eggplant, some purple cabbage. Just trying to get people to have more diversity in their diet is really important.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's not just about, or it is about feeding those gut bacteria. So that's like your prebiotics essentially, all those colorful fruit and veg and things. But it's also about then consuming fermented foods and drinks. And I definitely think this is something that most people in Gen Pop are not doing. They're like, all right, tell me what fermented foods are. Yeah. And I'm like, all right, we've got kimchi, sauerkraut, miso, kefir, like milk kefir or coconut water kefir, tempeh, which I'm obsessed with, and I feel like not enough people know about.
It's amazing.
I have tempeh with hummus.
Oh.
Yeah, it's really random.
Interesting.
No, that's good. I feel like that's a good combo. I would do that. Yeah, so just getting those fermented foods and drinks in, and if you're someone who doesn't like those, then depending on, what's going on with your gut, maybe looking at a particular probiotic. But of course, I love to do whatever we can through food as medicine. So your fermented foods and drinks, your prebiotics, and yeah, just steering clear of crap, reading, like you were saying, when you're going through the shops, like reading labels. I know for me personally and a lot of my clients, things like carrageenan, E202, sulfites, MSG, they're some of the biggest additives, preservatives that are going to mess with your gut, cause inflammation, give you all kinds of weird symptoms.
And there also seem to be some of the staples in our day-to-day products as well. Really interesting. And this is not like a Woolies like pump up or promo, but we went through our like grocery store recently and like went through and looked at some of just like the real basic like home brand like foods.
Yeah.
And they seem to be the ones that had like the less amount of the additives in them. And I was kind of sitting there going, so shocked, because they're like the cheapest ones on the stands, but they're also the ones with like minimal additives in them as well.
That is very interesting.
Yeah, fun fact. Not a Woolies promo, I swear.
Yeah.
And also kind of scary when you think about like when people are like, yes, I'm being super healthy, and they're having like nut milks, but then they've got, certain oils in them and carrageenan, or they're eating like hummus and it's got additives and preservatives. So it's difficult to know what the right thing is to do. But I try and just say, eat real food that grew on the planet.
Yeah. And so with your consults, to take it back a step further, how do you actually start to identify these different types of gut microbiome with your patients? Do you go into the depths of doing some gut microbiome tracking or I'm not sure what
testing,
like symptom tracking?
Testing, no, more so like, because I know, for example, in naturopathy, you guys do things, or there's a variety of you that do things like stool tests and stuff like that as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So like I'll always, testing is expensive, right? And I think you get the most information from someone telling you how they feel and telling you what's going on with them. So, my consults will be an hour long, my one-on-ones, and I will ask them a million questions. Like by the end, I know way too much about them, probably more than they want to share. But, I delve into like, what does their stool look like? How often are they going to the bathroom? Are they getting any gassiness, any bloating, any reflux? Any food intolerances. I'm asking all about their menstrual cycle, their lifestyle, stress, absolutely everything. And obviously then I've got this kind of like little in my encyclopedia brain, I'm making all these mental connections like, all right, this person has heaps of anxiety. That's definitely going to be affecting their gut. We're making so many neurotransmitters in our gut, our serotonin, our dopamine. You just can't have stress and not have it impact your gut, and vice versa. Like, I think there's research now that says like when you're stressed out, that it can actually change the balance of the microbes in your gut. So the consults are basically just trying to find out all the different avenues that could be impacting your digestion and all other areas of your health. The gut's the seat of all health. So that's kind of my first point of call when I'm thinking about treatment and investigation. And about the testing, I will send someone for a stool test or a microbiome test if we're not getting anywhere with the usual stops. If we're like, hang on, you're eating really clean and we're doing all the right stuff, nothing, there should be no reason for this to happen. Maybe there's some parasite that I've missed or, something going on. Then we'll be like, all right, let's invest the money so that we're not just throwing things in the dark and hoping something sticks.
I love that approach though, because like as you said, and we often talk about it, people really often disregard rather the low hanging fruit of health. So like food, sleep, water, movement, stress management, that sort of stuff. They just go, oh, I need to spend $500 on this like stools test sample thingy that's going to tell me all the levels, and it's just way too convoluted.
Yeah, it's like the complexity almost is like too much too early. Like that can be later on down the line, like you said, if you don't actually get the change you're wanting.
Yeah.
But if you make the changes, the small, or the big,
the non-sexy
changes,
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we forget all that stuff. Like when we're stressed out, like we're in bed like scrolling till like 1 a.m. instead of being like, I'm stressed, I need to be in bed early and get good sleep.
Yeah.
All those little things. And I feel like as health practitioners, a lot of us have those things fairly, solid in our routine. So when you're in clinic, it's hard to forget that a lot of people just aren't even drinking enough water.
Yeah.
They're not doing basic stuff. They don't actually, you're like, how do you manage your stress? And they'll be like,
I don't know.
watch Netflix. And I'm like, there's no actual strategy, nothing in play, no herbs for nervous system support that they actually engage in. So basics are key.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess then how does the hormonal side of things come into play from your end?
Good question. So the gut is where we eliminate old unwanted hormones. So, and I should clarify this as well. When I speak about hormones, I'm speaking about hormones of the menstrual cycle, because obviously there's thyroid hormones and blood sugar hormones and all of that.
Yep. So things like estrogen, progesterone,
Testosterone.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not very well versed in my hormones.
That's all right. We're going to keep it simple.
Yeah.
So obviously when, your body no longer needs them and you're going through changes in your cycle, the liver processes them, makes them water soluble and sends it to your gut, and your gut poops them out basically. But what happens is if we are not having daily bowel motions, or if there's like inflammation, irritation and stuff in the gut, you get recycling of hormones. So those hormones go back into the bloodstream and they're like 10 times more potent. Don't quote me on 10 times, but they're a lot more potent, and they wreak havoc. So you'll end up with painful periods, irregular cycles, sore boobs, heavy bleeds, a range of different things, PMS, moodiness, irritability, that's a huge one. So I see that's honestly probably one of the biggest things with the women that I treat is, their gut isn't working, and therefore it just throws their whole cycle out.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And like when you say gut isn't working, it's that inflammation. It might be, those big, long gaps in like the junctions, as you said, that sort of stuff.
Yep. And the diarrhea and the constipation. And I think a lot of people are like, I'm gassy. I have reflux. Or, these things are kind of like not a big deal, and not realizing how much they're impacting them.
Yeah.
Do you find that it compounds as well? Like over time it gets worse? Because, like sometimes these symptoms pop up and you kind of just think to yourself, whatever. It's just like a once-off kind of thing. Then all of a sudden, by the time they walk in your door, I can imagine it's kind of like there's a whole list of things that are now happening versus, that one or two symptom that they notice once.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely, I think we're pretty resilient as humans. Our health is not going to be perfect all the time, but it's when people come in and be like, oh no, I poo once a week and I have since I was 20 and I'm now 55. And they would just say to me, oh no, but my mum was like that too. And I'm always like, but just because your mum was, it doesn't mean it's normal. It doesn't mean that you can't have a regular daily bowel motion. And I'm all about genetics. Yes, cool. But genetics are the gun, lifestyle is the trigger. And unless it's, something, what am I trying to say? Not functional, structural with the bowel, we can make you go to the toilet every day and you're going to feel so much more energetic, have less fatigue, have better skin, because, the gut's a channel of elimination. It's a detox organ. So you want to get rid of crap, literally.
Yeah, right. And then does that have like an inverse effect? So when our periods are out of whack or our hormones are all over the shop, does that then make our gut health worse by effect?
Yeah, I mean, the whole body is so like no system works individually, right? It's just
Yeah.
like this complex interplay. Everything impacts one another. Like even in menopause, I see it a lot. Like women's bowels slow down. And then of course, like if you think about if your hormones are out of whack, you have like PMS, you're feeling stressed out. That's again, your gut is going to then speak to, sorry, your brain is going to then speak to your gut,
Yeah.
and it's going to have an impact. I was just going to say something. What was I going to say? I lost it. It'll come back to me.
It'll
That's
come.
all right.
That happens on a daily basis. So when we're talking about, I guess, a client coming in and wanting to work with you, as you said, it's like most commonly the gut side of things, or they're getting gut symptoms, or it could be, as you said, like heavy periods or abnormal periods. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. And then you do a bit of a comprehensive assessment and sort of work out all the different pieces of the puzzle that might be influencing said issue. And
Yep.
then what happens next?
All right, cool. So I very much try and not bombard my clients. You know, none of us make changes overnight. If we look at our own health, it's like a journey,
Yeah.
right? So usually I will give them a couple of pieces of advice in terms of like food as medicine. So for example, if they've got hormonal stuff and it is linked to potentially to their gut stuff, which they may not have even realized, I love suggesting people have like ground flaxseed, just because it's awesome fiber, it's anti-inflammatory, it is a phytoestrogen, so it helps to normalize our estrogen levels. It's going to help us make daily bowel motions. Such an easy thing, doesn't really taste weird. You know, chuck it in some porridge, put it in a smoothie.
It's disguised very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll do that. I might suggest for them to have some cruciferous veggies. So again, they're nice phytoestrogens, or they help to clear old unwanted estrogen as well. They contain something called DIM and I3C. But anyway, you just need to know things like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale. They're all your friend when it comes to hormonal imbalances. So many different things, so many different options in terms of food as medicine. We can run through as many as you like.
Maybe
Stuff
one
like
more
bone
common
broth.
one.
Bone broth
Yeah,
is a nice
and that's
healing
one
one.
that's not really kind of like spoken about too much in general pop either. Like no one really goes into the store and grabs bone broth off the, because they sell them like all the different bone broth.
I feel like people do, or at
Do you
least
reckon?
people that I see do, but they don't necessarily understand why
Why?
it's good to take,
Yeah,
why
yeah,
they're
that's
taking
true.
it, what it's meant to be doing.
Yeah, no, very true.
They're just like, oh, you know, my local grocer's selling bone broth and like, it's trendy, so I'll just take it. But they don't
Yeah.
really know what it's doing.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
run me through like what the bone broth actually is and what it does for people.
So it's rich in collagen, so it's really healing to these cells in the gut lining. It's going to be anti-inflammatory. It's going to heal that leaky gut situation. But yeah, I often have clients, I'm like, have some bone broth. And I forget that they're like, what do I do? Do I just drink it? Or like, how the hell do I have it, you know?
Yeah.
So I try and remind them, like, just use it as like a base in your soup. If you're making pumpkin soup, like instead of using stock, just chuck in bone broth.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this is a naturopath thing, but I will just heat up bone broth and put like a little bit of Celtic sea salt and drink it, because it's,
I've
it's
done
not
that
super
before.
strong.
I've done that before with a bit of lemon juice just to like add something extra.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty good. You can, I don't know how to explain it. Like it tastes ligamenty. I don't know.
Ligamenty? Come on, what?
Descriptor.
Matty, that is not promoting bone broth very well at all.
No, like it's good. It's nice.
Tastes like
it
bones, you know?
feels nourishing, even if it's I don't know. Like I don't know.
I'm going to have
It's
to go home now.
mild.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's good. I like it. I enjoy it. And I completely understand like your whole drinking it by itself thing. It's
I'm
kind
going to
of
have to try that. I've never tried that before. We've
It's
got
pretty
some at
good.
home. I just have never tried actually.
I tried making my own once and it was like, it was actually really cool. And I slow cooked it for like 72 hours or something like that. But I get weird with chicken bones. So I was like,
Okay. Yeah, best to buy it then. But I also just buy it. But honestly, so many clients who make it and they swear by it, they love it.
Yeah.
And, they're
Right.
putting love and energy into the food that they're making. So I feel
That's
like that's
it,
a
yeah.
good thing.
Which is all part of it as well, right? The
Yeah.
process.
So cruciferous veggies, bone broth, and what was the first one? Apologies.
Flaxseed,
Flaxseed.
ground
flaxseed.
That's it. Yes.
I recommend a lot. Just getting them to obviously eat their fermented foods or drinks. And actually, I talk a lot about steering clear of cold, raw foods because I think that it's easy to be like, my gut's not great or my hormones are out of whack, so I want to eat really clean. And people have a lot of salads and a lot of green smoothies. And I see nothing but that wreaking havoc on an upset gut.
Yeah.
So, cooked foods, soups, a little bit of slow cooked food, stews, even just like protein and veggies, just something that's cooked that makes it easy to digest and, brings that warmth to the gut, especially like if you're getting blood clots, heavy bleeds, or if you get like period pain, that kind of like stagnant kind of feeling, in your uterus, having like warming foods, adding like cinnamon or ginger or turmeric, I'm like, don't do smoothies at that time, but if you want to add those herbs to your smoothies, and it's gonna, really help.
Yeah, and then walk through, like, do you look a little bit at lifestyle factors for people? I know you mentioned like the low hanging fruits before, but like, what kind of lifestyle stuff do you often find yourself referring to with people?
Honestly, stress.
Yeah.
So I honestly don't think I see any client who doesn't either have loads of stress or a lot of anxiety. And if they say they don't, it's because they've been living with it for such a long time that they've learned how to adapt. And they're like, I function fine. I have 5 kids and I'm a single mom and, I run 2 businesses. And I'm like, you obviously deal really well because you're used to dealing really well and you have to. But that also doesn't mean that your body isn't producing, loads of cortisol and adrenaline to make you feel like you're coping really well.
Yeah.
So my partner's a breathwork facilitator, so I try and just remind people just to, breathe, retrain themselves how to breathe. Yeah?
I'm just the biggest advocate for it in our friend group anyway. It's so good.
Yeah, we had Dean Gladstone on the potty a few episodes ago as well, and it was awesome just like sitting and talking with him and listening a little bit.
Just about what he does and how it can help just in your day-to-day life, which I'm sure you know all about, obviously, with your husband being a facilitator.
Little bits. Yeah, it's so funny. We actually laugh a lot where his like, logo with like mantra, I should say, tagline, that's what I'm trying to say, is like breathe, move, connect, It's like just teaching people how to do the basics of life, like walking, getting enough steps in your day, breathing properly, breathing into your belly instead of just into your chest, connecting with people, connecting with yourself, just these basic things that I think we live in such a fast-paced world that we don't make time for. Like how often do we sit in silence?
Yeah. It's not until the end of the day and then you just kind of like hold on to it all day and let it go all at once.
Yeah.
Or sometimes don't let it go at all.
Yeah, or just like watch TV to distract yourself or, quieten your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So unpacking a lot of stress with your clients on the day-to-day. And so obviously talk them through a little bit of the breathwork side of things and actually slowing down the pace. Like do you lean on the physical activity side of things a little bit with them as well and look at that from a management perspective?
Yeah, like I'm hugely into exercise. I love my movement more than anything, which is wild because I never did really until I moved to Thailand. And I do find it's something that people don't incorporate a lot of into their life. Like I'm doing a lot of just trying to get people to get in, enough steps because people are sitting behind their desk. Just getting them to, even like use a watch, just like what gets measured gets improved. And maybe finding an exercise that they actually love. It doesn't have to be something intense, particularly if they're stressed or anxious, some yin yoga, just something to get into your body and move your body. And if you love it, then it's going to be something that you do forever instead of being like, I should go to the gym because the gym is good for me.
But I hate it.
And then they do it for like a month and they do it too intensively and then they drop it.
Yeah.
Heaps of lifestyle stuff, just really personalizing lifestyle stuff because I think yeah, everyone is so different in terms of what they include and what their norm is and what their friends and family do. And, you know, we're influenced by that, I think.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I guess off the back of that, aside from maybe some abnormal period things, is there any other hormonal symptoms or signs that might be going on for someone that, they might work with you for?
Yeah, so I think, like I mentioned, maybe off air, I work a lot with menopausal and perimenopausal women. And like I'm 38, so I'm like at the stage where I'm like, I need to prepare to make sure that, you know, I'm having a smooth transition into menopause, just because I see so women having such a tough time with it. Honestly, it's really, really bad and scary to see. Obviously, I hear a lot of the worst case scenarios. I don't hear the people who have a super smooth ride and are dealing with it well. But think about stuff like hot flashes starting, periods obviously becoming irregular and heavier, people getting vaginal dryness, people having a big change in their libido, migraines, headaches, like vestibular things, like getting like dizziness out of nowhere, itchy skin. Honestly, it's such an array of symptoms.
Yeah.
And if people aren't educated on, you know, even what perimenopause is, like I don't think I really knew about it or knew what the hell it was until I got into this industry.
No, same. I agree. And to be honest, only recently we really like dove into it a little bit further. We through like a little community
Like webinar session?
Yeah, that we've got it going at the minute. We had Izzy Smith, who's an endocrinologist, here to talk about perimenopause and actually what it is, because just you see patients going through some of these symptoms and sometimes just attribute it to, you know, stress. Or those kind of things. You don't really kind of sit there and take a step back and look at the big picture and connect the dots.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because it can happen, you know, between like 35 and, you know, 55. Yep. So how do you know, is that what's happening to you? And then there's crossover symptoms with like thyroid issues or like burnout. So it is hard to know what's going on.
It's so nuanced. So moving away from the food side of things, I always was of the understanding that naturopaths really dive into like natural herbs and supplements as well to support someone's health and immunity. If someone was working with you, what does that look like? Or is that something that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's not really a client that comes to see me where we don't explore what nutritional supplement or what herbal medicines can help support that journey. I think it just fast tracks the healing process. So again, though, I don't want to bombard people with, you know, 10 different supplements, because I see that happening a lot, and I think that scares people and it's really expensive. So I often am prescribing like good quality gut healing powders. So they'll have things in there like slippery elm or quercetin or some zinc, some vitamin D, some glutamine, all ingredients that do what we were speaking about before, which is reduce inflammation in the gut. That might contain some probiotics and prebiotics in there. Or we might use herbal medicine. So herbs will come in a variety of different ways that they can be administered, whether it's capsules, there'll be dried powdered herbs in capsules, tablets, creams we can make, and also herbal tinctures. So that's like a liquid herbal medicine that tastes questionable because you can imagine it's, you know, herbs that have been, you know, the constituents have been extracted using alcohol, and you have this beautiful brown liquid.
Yeah.
And it's really cool though, because we have a herbal dispensary, so we have a whole bunch of big bottles of herbs, and then we can pick and choose which herbs are relevant for the particular client. So if I'm like, oh, this person has anxiety and they're constipated and, you know, they're entering menopause, I can just pick, you know, 5 or 6 different herbs, pop them all into the bottle together, and then prescribe it to my client, and they'll give it a little shake, and they'll have, say, 5 ml 3 times a day, and that's just going to support that healing process. So it's honestly such a powerful tool. I feel like everybody should know that herbs exist and what they can do for you, and that they're an alternative if you're someone who doesn't want to go down the conventional medicine route, or if you are I don't know, say using HRT and you want to use something alongside, there are options.
Yeah, I get quite tinfoil hatty about it because I definitely, as I said earlier, feel like there's a place, and I am not in any way, shape or form against conventional medicine either. But then I feel like the natural herbal medicine isn't, it's kind of like not as well known or not as well talked about unless you're really, really interested in it. And I always attribute it back to like big pharma and things like that. I'm so tinfoil hatty. People will be listening, thinking I'm an absolute idiot. I don't care, but yeah, I've got some conspiracies.
Mads, I fully support that. So, yes. Yeah, I just think that, like, why are we not more informed about this stuff? There are just so many options, even just in terms of boosting our immune system. And I know we were going to touch on gut and immunity as well. Like, just so many options. Even if you want to look at basics like zinc and vitamin C and super mushrooms, like there's just our body. And I guess this is one of the philosophies of natural medicine as well. The body has an innate healing capacity.
Yeah.
And the role of the naturopath, we say, is doctor is teacher. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. So, we're just meant to teach our clients. We're not meant to make them reliant on us forever. I want you to start understanding like how your body works and learn how to listen to your body. So you don't have to be like, Lauren, I'm sick. What do I take? You're going to be like, hey, I know I'm sick because I've been sleeping 5 hours a night and this stressful situation is going on and I've been eating like crap. So, yeah, I'm not sure how we got to that.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. And then off the back of that as well, so when it comes to immunity, like I feel like in today's day and age, our immune system really fluctuates a lot. And I think a lot of it is predisposed to by like all these new strains of whatever you want to call it, like COVID and blah, blah, blah coming around. But also the fact that we are just like really run down, like our bodies aren't like working at the best capacity that they can work at.
We're jamming as much as possible.
Yeah, we're trying to do as much as we can on a week-to-week basis. Yeah. How do you find yourself supporting someone's like immunity or someone's health from that perspective?
Well, definitely like still coming back to the gut, like 70% of our immune system's in our gut. So again, if you're getting gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, reflux, and you're also run down, yes, I'm going to give you something that's going to support your immune system, say some echinacea or some andrographis if you have an infection, some zinc, sea mushrooms, that kind of stuff. But I also concurrently am going to be working on improving your gut health. Can I tell you a fun fact? Because this is the coolest thing about the human body.
Yeah, go.
So in our gut, like I said, the 70% of our immune system resides in the gut, right? So it's called the GALT, gut associated lymphoid tissue. Basically, it's like the tissue that's in our digestive tract has immune cells, and our microbiome, so all the bugs that live in there, actually speak to those cells and like educate them on how to like fight invaders and educate them on like this is self and non-self, so that we don't like develop autoimmune conditions. And then even cooler is that it's not just about localized immunity, like what's coming into the gut, like what we consume, like bugs through food and stuff. Yeah. It's also, we speak to the different microbiomes in our body. So like the one in our gut can talk to the one in our lung and the one in our skin and be like, hey, we've got a weird rash, and it actually sends signals and immune modulators through the bloodstream to the skin or to the lungs to fight infection.
Oh my gosh. That's very, very
cool.
I'm my mouth dropped midway through that. I was like, whoa.
You're like unraveled, unpacked. You just,
I'm
a little bit mind blown as well. Wow. Because I knew like a lot of our like immune system was resided like in the gut and was really driven by that whole process of traveling through the bloodstream to fight off infection and stuff like that. How do you use some of your herbal medicine and stuff like that to really support those immune processes as well, though? So from the perspective of, obviously, like you said, those cells or the gut microbiome really communicate with those immune cells and like help to identify external things coming into our body. If someone's suffering from like a cold or like an infection and stuff like that, are there then things that you would look to lean on to support someone's immunity in that sense and really boost their immune response to like external pathogens or or stuff that are causing infections and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. There are loads of different herbs that are antimicrobial. So if you're someone who doesn't want to be taking antibiotics, or maybe your immune system's low and you're getting thrush before your periods, things like that, there is literally a herb for everything. It's mind-boggling. And so like an antimicrobial herb, antifungal herb, antiparasitic herbs, antibacterial herbs, and those herbs, like all your antimicrobials, are the ones that taste the worst. They are horrible.
Always.
So
Beautiful.
I try not to give them in liquid tincture. I try and give them in capsules so that you're only burping up the taste later. You don't actually have to taste it going down. And then there is immune modulating herbs. So say if you have an autoimmune condition and your immune system is hyperactive, you can have herbs to stabilize that, and then just immune enhancing herbs. People obviously have heard of echinacea probably, and astragalus.
Yeah.
That's really good for convalescence. So yes, I use herbal medicine loads in all facets. But again,
do you
bring it back to
find
the
you
gut.
have to pivot on some herbs or supplements sometime based on the type of supplement, or like, because I'm just picturing, right, supplement wise, like there are obviously different brands with different formulas, and same with the herbal side of things. I feel like there's, like you said, there's like a class of herbs that you would use to boost someone's immune system or things like that. Do you find people sometimes respond differently to particular types of those herbs and stuff like that?
Do people respond differently to those types of herbs?
I'm just trying to think, like if you use two different herbs, let's say, or two different supplements to kind of like boost someone's immune response to a particular thing. Like an
Does
infection.
one work better than the other or something?
Yeah. Or like, do you find that people like will take one without taking the other, and then that one doesn't really work very well for them, so they change to like another class or another type, and they take that, and you find they get a better response from that? Because like you said before, I can imagine it's a very like individual like process from the perspective of like actually whether it's dosage type or whether it's actual type of herb for fighting off that particular disease. I feel like people's immune system or people's system actually respond differently to the herbs and supplements that you prescribe as well. So you sometimes have to trial different dosages or try and give people different things to fight off the same infection. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think, so many answers to this question, so many different elements. But first thing that comes to my mind is this. So people will often buy like a capsule over the counter. It's like echinacea, astragalus, vitamin C, cordyceps or something. That's the difference between doing something like that. It's like kind of like having a general tonic, like we know that this is predominantly good at boosting the immune system and fighting off colds and flus. Whereas if you go see a naturopath and they can, we have access to what they're called practitioner only supplements. Right. So they're from companies that have put together particular formulations that either have scientific research on them or we know work really well together, or they might have dual action. So we know that this is for like nervous system and hormones. So it's going to be like really good for someone with PMS. Yeah. So you're not really going to find that stuff like over the counter. Yeah. So I think it's about...
Oh yeah, no. I was just going to say, that's kind of what I was thinking. I was like, I wonder, because I know you get access to different types as well from the perspective of like different brands. Is that the right word to use?
Yeah, we have different brands and all different herbs that you kind of, they might be a little bit, more unique, and like think about things like withania. I don't know if you guys have heard about withania. No. I guess you... Okay, there are certain herbs like withania, kava, things like red rice yeast extract, stuff that like suddenly comes into the public sphere and everyone knows about, and they're like, oh my God, withania. Oh, sorry, people would be calling it ashwagandha. That's the other name. Yeah. So everyone is like, oh my God, there's this incredible herb. It's great for the nervous system and, for the adrenal glands. And they're like, this is incredible. Meanwhile, we're over here being like, we have about 20 herbs for the nervous system. Ashwagandha isn't necessarily better than any of them. This is just the one that's well known now. So it would be one thing that I might include in your formula. So I love that the world is becoming more aware and knowledgeable about these herbs, but it's still such a drop in the ocean, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose that's what I was like curious about. I was like, man, like, because you do often hear about like one herb or one thing making an appearance, but there'd be like an array of, you know, like you said, 15, 16, 17 other things that you could trial, especially if like people didn't actually respond to that one thing that they're kind of coming and going like, I swear this is good for me. I swear this is good for me. You're kind of like, I've got the full toolkit behind closed doors. If this doesn't work for you, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. We've got like 16 other things that we can go down the path of putting into the formula to actually prescribe.
I'm not going to lie. I wasn't sure where you were heading when you asked
sorry.
that
I just,
question,
that
but it makes
really
sense now.
really long-winded, but we got there. I just wasn't sure how to ask the question because I was like, I don't really know like if there's, you know, like different other things to put in the formula. Yeah. So,
but you nailed it. That's exactly what it is, and that's exactly how we feel. You know, people try one thing, and you're right. I think it's the fact that a herb has like multiple actions is the cool thing, and that's how, as a herbalist, you're able to be like, yeah, withania seems good, but actually I reckon you're better having Schisandra because it has the nervous system support and the hormonal balancing. So, you know, you're getting more benefit by, I guess, being prescribed by someone who really knows all the actions of the herbs.
Yeah. And do you find just with the over-the-counter, because like, you know, I get really torn on just like taking some over-the-counter stuff. You go into Woolies, again, not a Woolies promo. You go into Woolies and you go...
the firing line.
I know, sorry. Woolies, Coles, anyone. You go in there and you go down like the central, like the, you know, the health and wellness aisle or whatever it is.
Right.
No, the medications. The supplement aisle.
Yeah.
And they've got like heaps of different brands there, right? But I feel like sometimes people will just like roll down there and they're like, oh, that one's on special. Take it off and throw it in and just give it a whirl without really kind of knowing too much about it. Do you find people that come in to see you are just like, I've tried these herbs, I've tried this supplement, like it doesn't work, blah, blah, blah?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And that's one thing that I really like to help people with, just like off the bat. So like things like people will say, okay, I'm taking this calcium, I'm taking this vitamin D and this fish oil. And I'll be like, cool, okay, what one is it? Can you read me the back of the label? Like what form is it? And they'll be like, okay, it's a calcium carbonate. Yeah. I feel like I hope listeners at home now are like grabbing their calcium from their cupboards and being like, what one do I have?
What one do I have?
And I know I try and explain to them, you know, when a nutrient is in nature, it's unstable, right? So we bind it to something, and something cheap to bind it to is calcium carbonate. And that's what's in a lot of the pharmacy brand calciums. The problem is that it actually neutralizes your stomach acid. So then you're not breaking down food as well. You're not fighting off any nasty bugs that are coming into your gut. And a lot of like elderly are taking it, you know, because it's a well-known form of calcium, but we already have low stomach acid with age. So it's not actually doing anything. Calcium carbonate is actually the same thing that you'll find in quickies.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to say my partner is a frequent sufferer of indigestion through his own device. Like it's not a natural thing, it's a lifestyle thing. He loves beer. But yeah, I often read the back of them. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, right.
So, and then just stuff like fish oil, you know, knowing it's like you got these big containers that are sitting under the lights in whatever supermarket is selling them, and you know they're a fat, and I'm like, how are these transported? Are they oxidizing? Are they doing the opposite of what you want, which is reducing inflammation? So really, like quality is everything.
Also,
absolutely.
Moral of the story: go and see someone who knows a little bit of thing about these supplements, and don't just grab every supplement off the aisle at your local.
Such a drive-by on Woolies. Poor Woolworths.
Not Woolies, I swear. There's other supermarkets too.
But you know what I'm always saying to people, like people go to pharmacies or to the supermarket, but I'm like, you don't like go to the supermarket when you want to buy a pharmaceutical, you know? So like go to a health food store. Like you probably be all right if you go to a health food store, chat to one of the naturopaths behind the counter, and most of the supplements in health food store are pretty good. You know, they've got
Yeah.
pretty good quality forms, so you'll be all right there too. You
And
don't
I
have
think,
to see a naturopath.
yeah, I think as
Yeah.
well, like you just forget sometimes you have access to those health food stores. Like what's the one down the road from you?
It's changed its name a gazillion
Oh,
times.
okay, all right, we're not going to be able to name it.
Ah.
But yeah, like you
Yes, okay.
sometimes forget that you've got access to some of those services because you're right, it is like naturopaths that are working there a lot of the time as well, isn't it?
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah,
my
it
best
sure
friend
is.
works at our local one, and I feel so bad. I can't remember the name. It used to be Mrs. Watson's. I don't know if that's any help.
No, I don't know.
Something.
I don't know. I've been there a few times to get kimchi. Really
Yeah,
good.
I go there for my supplements, and as you said, Lauren, like they're so good when you talk to them. They're like, oh, this. Like, I
Yeah.
think you'll be best with that.
Yeah. They're pretty knowledgeable.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, look, I feel like we maybe wrap it there because
Yeah.
there's so much information
I feel like
that we've just covered.
Deep dive. We went hard on the deep dive. Also, we went on long-winded questions, but that's okay.
No, it's what this is all about. As we said to you at the start, tangents are tangentially likely.
Yeah.
So obviously, from what we've sort of talked about today, and look, I'm sure we didn't even cover like a tenth
Half
of
of
it.
what we put
yeah,
down.
there's a massive link between our gut health, our immunity, particularly hormone health as well, and all the other avenues of health. I'm sure. Obviously, working with you or working with somebody, an expert in this area, is paramount if you're really wanting to get on top of things. But some take-home tips for the audience that you said, if I remember correctly, are things like your flax seeds, cruciferous veggies, warming foods. Was there anything else that our audience can sort of take away from today if they're really wanting to optimize their gut and or hormonal health?
Good question.
Where do I begin?
I'm trying to think. I know that I'm going to walk away and be like, oh, I forgot all of those things. Polyphenols are a big one. So they are like a type of antioxidant that you can consume. You get it in things like cacao and green tea and like blue or red or purple colored foods.
Like berries?
And they are, sorry?
Berries? Is that right?
Yeah.
Cool.
Berries, pomegranate, purple carrots, purple cabbage, matcha. And they're like antioxidants, so they help with inflammation, they indirectly help with hormonal balance, but they also ensure that your gut lining is happy and smooth and functioning well. So that's another little food as medicine thing. So I don't want people to feel like there's nothing that they can't do at home. There's so much that they can start implementing.
Yeah,
Hold
and
on.
obviously as well, like working with someone like yourself is like going to be pretty important in terms of unpacking a lot of that stuff.
And individualized advice as well.
Yeah, which is huge for people.
I feel as though there is so much nutrition information out there, and there's so many different people telling you, do this, do that diet, do keto, do fasting, do blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I feel like it takes us away from what our body is telling us it wants and needs.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I feel like growing up with diet culture, we're kind of already been programmed to like not listen to what our body needs. So it's hard to know, like, am I hungry? Am I full? But I think if you can work towards being able to listen to the signals from your body better, your body wisdom,
Yep.
then you're going to heal better by actually like, yes, my body likes that, or I'm craving this. I think, we heal better and we know what's good for our gut and what's not good for our gut, rather than just trying to take advice from people on the internet.
Yeah, beautiful.
And like you said as well, I think like diet culture plays a massive role in that space in terms of really kind of promoting or
Dictating what, when, and how much to eat.
Yeah, which can be really kind of troublesome when it comes to people then going, right, like I'm eating too much or too much of this stuff. Or like you said, really deep diving and narrowing in on specific things they have to eat instead of being really diverse and eating when they want or what they want kind of thing. So.
Yeah, and it's hard because people are definitely like, maybe emotionally eating during PMS, or, our hunger actually just naturally increases in the second half of our cycle anyway. So they're going to want to eat more. And if someone is, say, binge eating or emotionally eating, it does have an impact on our gut health. That's part of my history and my journey, that messed with my gut so much, just really overeating, using it as like a coping mechanism, as a stress management tool.
Yeah.
So I know that, gentle fasting, I hate diets, but I do find that people who have gut issues tend to feel better when they're not eating, and that's because there's no inflammation going on in the gut and they're not reacting to certain foods. So I do find that gentle, I don't even like to say fasting, just eating, your main meals rather than snacking throughout the day can be really helpful for someone with gut issues.
Yeah, and I guess it's so individualized, right? Like I don't necessarily want anyone listening to this going, well, I can only eat at these times and I, can't eat in between if I am hungry. Like it always does come back to listening to your body, but the rationale behind what you just said does make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And again, just come back to, I would never say like, if you're hungry, don't eat. Your body always knows best. So I guess it's just about blocking out the noise. And I think with my clients as well, I really try and be like, these are the things that seem like they are going to be helpful and good for your body, as opposed to like cut sugar, cut dairy, cut gluten, because it's so easy. I feel like most gut health naturopaths are getting people on these really strict diets, and it's about so much more than the food.
Yeah.
Gut health is not just what you're eating.
Yeah.
So
if you're stressing about gluten and, eating the wrong foods, that might be causing more harm than good.
And that's really
100
interesting.
without question. Yeah.
I didn't even think about that, because I know there's such different schools of thought with it as well. And like even in the Chinese medicine space, there's a lot of different schools of thought about, like dairy versus no dairy, or, and same with your space too. I've spoken to naturopaths in the past that are very much like no dairy, blah, blah, blah. So it's really tough to kind of navigate that space, isn't it?
It is. Like for me, I'm always like, do you tolerate it? Do you feel good? Like if you're not running to the bathroom afterwards, you might find that you can have small amounts. And then there's always going to be the other school of thought where you're like, well, we stop producing lactase, the enzyme that breaks down lactose, slowly after we stop breastfeeding. So technically we're not meant to be having dairy. And that is definitely true for me. My mouth loves cheese and dairy, my body doesn't. But like my partner can have, could have like a bowl of ice cream and be fine.
Yeah.
So
I'm definitely a milk girly. I have a glass of milk before bed every night.
Oh, do you?
I have friends that have like a drop of milk and they're running to the bathroom. So everyone's so different.
Yeah, and also with food intolerances, it's like I do try and say it's not like having celiac, where it's like you cannot have gluten ever.
Yes.
And intolerance is because your gut is inflamed, there's leaky gut, there's dysbiosis. Most food intolerances, you can overcome them through healing the gut, through natural medicine, through the right foods.
Yeah, and like, look, even just reflecting on my line of work with like disordered eating and EDs makes a lot of sense. Like if somebody presents that's quite restrictive in their diet patterns and they're like, no, I can't eat any gluten or any lactose or dairy products. I'm like, I always kind of come through the line of questioning of, are you like that because you've literally restricted and therefore removed all of the gut bacteria that is needed to process that food?
Yeah. Yeah,
I don't know if
exactly.
you agree, but that's just often like my first line of questioning. And more often than not, as eating improves, then those symptoms often resolve anyway.
Yeah, and imagine like if you feel like a food is quote unquote bad and you're consuming it, it's like your body like energetically, physically rejecting it. So it doesn't surprise me that afterwards when you're feeling guilty about eating that food, you're like, oh, I feel sick, I'm bloated, I'm nauseous. Whereas if that had been like a green salad, you'd be like, no, I feel really great on that, So the mental emotional plays a huge role, I reckon.
Yeah, that whole fight or flight, like you're not going to be digesting if you're panicking about something.
Exactly, the rest and digest will be off.
I feel like we're very aligned in that whole intuitive eating side of things, Lauren. It's great.
Yeah, it's fun. We could have lots of conversations about this.
And is that something that you do touch on with your clients?
Yes, all of them. I'm always trying to move people away from the shoulds and the shouldn'ts and what they're told is right and wrong, and just get them to be flexible. Because food is way more than fuel. I love food. Food is life. And I know that for me, I spent so many years thinking about what I was eating. And like now, and I also think exercising being a big part of my life plays a huge role. I just eat whatever the hell I want. I know what the foundations of good food is. Like I said, real food, whole foods, diversity. And I do that, 70 to 80% of the time.
Yeah.
And for the rest of the time, I'm going to enjoy whatever I want.
Life's too short.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Love it. You obviously are in Thailand. Where can people find you if they're listening to this? Because, obviously it's important to get in front of the right people, and we think you're pretty darn good at what you do. So where can people actually find you online to work with you?
Thanks, guys. So you can find me at laurenjane.naturopath on my Instagram, or you can go to Kaya Wellness, which is my online clinic. And I've actually got a free gut health assessment, which is pretty cool, that I put all my love and effort into. So you can do that. I've got a free gut health game plan. And actually, that's probably a good one that has like the basics. You can just download and be like, this is like 10 things that I can implement at home before I have to see a naturopath that can be helpful. And then I just got my packages for my one-on-one consultations.
Beautiful.
Oh, nice.
And we'll pop it all in the show notes as well for anyone listening that is wanting to jump on those things. I'm definitely going to have a look at your gut health game plan as well.
And low-key, last question. When you go to Melbourne, do you consult there like at all, or any face-to-face stuff?
I do, but because I don't have a little office or a little home, I'm having to, do it somewhere quiet for coffee and try and be discreet so, surrounding tables don't hear me. But perhaps in the future, I'm looking at getting a little space. So if you want to do a face-to-face, we can probably make that happen.
Stay tuned, in other words.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for jumping on, Lauren. It's really, really been really helpful. Not really, really been very helpful. It's definitely opened my eyes a lot more into the world of naturopathy. As we sort of said, there's so much to know, and I can't wait to sort of look at other things that you've done and learn more from you as well.
Cool. Thanks, guys. You're so fun and easy to talk to, and I hope that the listeners got something from this.
Amazing.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to this week's podcast.
Be the first to know when the next episode drops by hitting subscribe on wherever you catch your podcasts.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at we don't know yet.pod.
See ya.